Good morning. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C., and we are here to provide a briefing on the district's response to COVID-19. As many families around the district are aware, today is the first day of distance learning at our public schools. Our kids have been, and teachers have been on an adjusted spring break for the last 5 school days. So I want to start by thanking our educators and school staff for all they've done to get the tools and resources ready, printed and online so quickly. I also want to thank our public school families for their flexibility and collaboration. We certainly know that this is a challenging time for parents and caregivers. We also know that many of our parents are working at home, some at home, some going out to their workplaces, to essential jobs in our community. So we know that everyone is taking on many new responsibilities during this stressful time. Our expectation is that you work with us and do your best. You stay home except for essential trips, and we will all be learning together, and you will have the support of your child's teacher in school, as well as DCPS, the charter board, the deputy mayor, and the Office of the State Superintendent. I am joined today by Deputy Mayor Paul Kine, DCPS Chancellor Louis Farably, the Office of the State Superintendent Hansul Kang, and public charter school leaders who are all committed to the education, distant learning while we are in this phase. And we look forward to our students and teachers and parents working together collaboratively. We have also been very focused on getting more help. The Greater Washington Community Foundation, in partnership with Education for DC and the DC Public Education Fund, have established the DC Education Equity Fund. And I want to thank those partners for coming together so quickly. And I also want to thank many folks for their generosity, because just yesterday, the fund, the DC Education Equity Fund, raised $1 million. This fund, which people can learn more about at dcequity.org, will be used to help close the digital divide and get more resources to our students and families. In just a moment, Deputy Mayor Kine will share more about how this fund will work. I want to turn to Deputy Mayor Kine, followed by Chancellor Farably, and then we will have take time for your questions and answer and provide a general briefing on the response. Deputy Mayor Kine.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. As DCPS and many charter schools begin remote learning today, we have entered new territory as we work to stop the spread of COVID-19. Residents and families should know that we are prepared. Under Mayor Bowser's leadership, the administration has been working with our school leaders and preparing for weeks. Importantly, the district's public school leaders and teachers have done an incredible amount of preparation to meet this unprecedented challenge, deploying new plans and learning from each other. Because of that work, our public schools are ready to support students and families with thoughtfully prepared hard copy coursework, innovative online coursework, and additional supports by phone, through video chat, over email, and text. The district is fortunate to have a very strong network of education leaders and extraordinarily strong teachers. The city is committed to supporting our teachers as many begin new ways of engaging with their students in learning. In addition, together as a city, we must wrap our arms around our students and our families who are experiencing learning at home in new ways. It is necessary for us all collectively to support new learning routines and new learning schedules. This commitment to all students brings us back to Mayor Bowser's promise to provide every resident with a fair shot. As a city, we have an obligation to give every single student the resources they need to be successful in this unprecedented moment. As Mayor Bowser mentioned, in collaboration with the Education Forward DC, the DC Public Education Fund, and the Greater Washington Community Foundation, we are excited to help announce the launch of the DC Equity Fund. There is an urgent need to support our students, and this is a citywide effort to support all public school students within DCPS and public charter schools. The fund will be used to ensure that students' basic needs are being met so they are ready to learn, provide students with internet and device access to overcome the digital divide, and to support a successful transition when school buildings reopen by providing additional supports and learning resources as needed. I want to thank the initial contributors in this effort, which include Education Forward DC, the City Fund, the City Bridge Foundation, the Lois and Richard England Family Foundation, the Andrew and Julie Klingenstein Family Fund, and I especially want to recognize and thank the A. James and Alice B. Clark Foundation for an incredibly generous donation of $500,000 to kickstart this effort. And as the mayor mentioned, we're extremely pleased to announce we have now exceeded $1 million at the launch of this fund. We are also looking to residents who are able to help our public school students, and any amount will make a difference to our public school students who are in need of critical materials to support learning efforts, particularly consistent access to the internet and to devices. To join this effort, please go to dcedequity.org. That's dcedequity.org. Now, I want to close with just a few reminders. Distance learning is not a vacation. We expect that teaching and learning will continue, and we are asking for families and communities to do your best to support your students as we figure out this new normal together. We also want to reiterate the extreme importance of social distancing. Students should stay at home and not congregate. Families can and should enjoy recreation together within the family unit, but not in groups. Lastly, all residents are reminded to visit coronavirusdc.gov for resources and up-to-date information on our response to coronavirus and additional resources for families. With that, I want to turn it over to some school leaders who will share some of the remote learning plans that they've been working on. And we'll start with Principal Nia White from Center City Public Charter School. Principal White.
Good morning. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kine, Mayor Bowser, for inviting me to speak on behalf of a large part of the charter community and our students. So we've been really grinding, making sure that we can continue learning as much as possible for all of our scholars, and doing it in leveling ways. So we do realize that we have a large community of students and families that do not have not only internet access nor computer access, which is why we are so grateful and excited about the fund to try to make sure that we can continue our work to close the achievement gap amongst our scholars across the city. But making sure that we get those devices into their houses, into their hands, so that they can do this work. Because right now we have that leveled approach of, we do have a lot of work packets. Those work packets aren't just busy work. We've actually spent a lot of time making sure that teachers have annotated notes and things that they would normally say and advertise and explain in the classroom into those packets so the students can read or feel like their teachers are still there with them in one element or another. Outside of that, we've added the Google Meets and the Google chat rooms. It's very interesting and amusing to see a classroom group of students huddled around a computer with their teacher, asking questions as if they were still in the classroom. And through this fund, we hope that we could bring that to all of our scholars who do not have access at this time. Outside of that, we have families that are taking pictures of their assignments, posting it in Class Dojo, emailing it, texting it to teachers and their classmates for collaboration and advice. And outside of all of that, when we cannot access or reach them through the internet, we definitely reach out through cell phones or just regular home phones just to call and walk through and have a conversation with the students to let them know and their families know that we're still here for them, and we're still pushing for them to move and excel academically and instructionally. So thank you again for folks on that fund idea. It's going to be amazing for our students when all of our families can be leveled at receiving the education and continuing to close their achievement gap. And for the charter schools and the public schools that have been trying to get or have already received or given their students electronic devices in one way or another. And being able to do that across the city is effortless work, and thank you for the teachers and the families who are understanding this time and collaborating more so than ever with each other to make sure that this education platform and extended learning time works for our students in particular.
Thank you, Principal White, and now Chancellor Lewis Farabee will provide some remarks.
Good morning. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kine. Thank you, Mayor Bowser. I am inspired today by the response of our educators and our families for distance learning. I'm inspired today because we're back in school. We're back in school because many of our educators have worked really hard over the last week or two to ensure that our students can have access to meaningful learning experiences at home. We've launched our website, which is accessible via mobile devices as well. And we've already seen tremendous responses from families who've logged in. We want everyone to know that our materials are accessible to everyone. We're also really pleased by the number of families that were responsive to our learning packets that were available for pickup last week. We printed over 74,000 learning packets for students, and we had over 75% of those packets pick up, and we still have families asking for more. So we will continue to make those available. We will announce the days in which students can pick up packets for the upcoming weeks. I'm really pleased again by the response from our families. Our educators are currently meeting with students online. They're also reaching out to students by phone today as well. We also have our school administrators that are also reaching out to families. It's also important to note that our school counselors, our school social workers, our educators and staff that support students with special needs are all working today and reaching out to students for support. We're also pleased by the number of students that have also reached out to us that are high school students or middle grade students that have offered to provide tutorials to our youngest learners. And so we'll continue to coordinate opportunities for students to complete their volunteer service hours. We're also in the process of developing content that will be available to families via the DC Public Television access. We know this is particularly important for our youngest learners where there needs to be continued contact as students are learning their letter sounds, their sight words, and other early literacy skills. We're also in the process of distributing devices to our high school students. Beginning next week, we will make devices available to high school students that currently do not have devices at home. We know that many of our students are in advanced placement courses, and we receive notification from College Board that those exams will be administered virtually. It's also important to note that at a high school level, there are content learning packets by courses for graduation, and for our grades K through 8, our materials online and our learning packets are organized by grade level. And again, we'll continue to update those materials and we'll continue to reach out to our families. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, I just asked the superintendent if she could speak preliminarily about our efforts around daycare in the district.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor has previously shared, the city has been working closely with the DC Hospital Association and the DC Primary Care Association to stand up childcare options to support our healthcare workforce during this critically important time. And we're pleased to announce that those new options will launch later this week. We expect families to begin arriving at these new options this Thursday. We've started this initial partnership with 3 providers supporting children birth to age 12, and we will be looking to expand these options in the coming days and weeks to fully meet the demands of our to better meet the demands of our healthcare workforce. But we're really pleased to be able to provide greater childcare support so that our healthcare workforce can focus on the work that we all need them to be doing right now. Thank you.
And as we have been reporting each evening, the number of cases in the district, so we reported last night, we have 21 new cases in the district for a total positive number of cases in the district at 137. Also, as we reported yesterday, that we would be prohibiting non-essential business in the district, and we will be issuing that order and guidance today and later in the day. Just to give you some flavor of the businesses already closed in the district, as I have said repeatedly, we have virtually shut down economic activity in our city in an effort to contain the spread of the virus. And you already know the closed are gyms, health clubs, spas, massage establishments, places of mass gatherings, including theaters, stadium, arenas, our museums, conference centers, and cafeterias, nightclubs. DPR facilities have been locked. Our libraries are closed. Our senior centers are closed, and our schools buildings are closed. And we have also shut down with MPD and the Park Police access to the tidal basin. The new guidance will address, as I mentioned, non-essential businesses, but they will include salons and barbershops, tattoo parlors, tanning salons, and services not related to an emergency response. So we will, you can expect to see that guidance today. And it is in keeping, as I mentioned yesterday, as we reported, my conversations with the governors that surround DC, that the business activity and the prohibitions will be in line with the greater Washington region. We can take questions. Yes.
So could you clarify that about the extension of closures to non-essential businesses? Are you going to order the tattoo parlors?
Yes.
Could you go through that list of what you're going to order closed again?
Actually, Mark would like you to refer to the guidance, because what I'm about to say is not exhaustive. But let me just mention that they will be included. What we consider personal services, there will be they are non-essential. Salons and barbershops, tattoo parlors, tanning salons, and there will be others in the services areas that are not related to an emergency response.
What about like clothing stores, things like that?
In the retailers will fall into various categories. So I'm going to refer you to the guidance and when it's issued. Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
about 15 hours ago, DC does put out numbers, more than 19,000 unemployment claims. Do you have, number one, any updated numbers on that? And secondly, we're getting a lot of complaints that the waits on hold are extensive online, and that online people are having trouble doing it on their phones. Do you have any update on that?
Well, yes, we talked about that last week, and we're going to invite people not to call, or if you do call, you will have an extensive wait. Literally, there are thousands of people trying to call at the same time. It's best to go online, and everything can be, we think, handled online. And you cannot use a mobile device. You need to use a desktop or laptop.
What? Okay, so what do you say to people that don't have access to a laptop or this?
These are our options right now, Paul.
There's nothing they can do about that.
They can talk to somebody on the phone, but it will require a wait, and we are going to answer every single call, but the deluge of calls at the same time is not physically possible for everybody's call to be answered at the same time.
And this office is closed on Minnesota Avenue. They can't go down there.
They cannot go to the office, but the people in that office are working, and there are people who are reporting to that office to work, but it's not open to the public.
Would you say that because of the overwhelming numbers that you're getting, that's the extensive backup that you're seeing?
I'm sorry?
Because of the overwhelming numbers that you're seeing of people trying to file claims, that's why there's such a backup.
Well, obviously, I mean, there are a lot of people calling at the same time, and we're staffed, and our systems are staffed to handle an average number of calls. But as we get through this, we'll see the call times decrease, and more people would have filed online, and more questions would have been answered. So we have to ask people for their patience.
All right, and to follow up, there's a number of people online that are saying that the city council should come up with more money for employer benefits. That the benefits right now are somewhere a little over $400 a week. Would you support that?
Well, what I would say to everybody is that we are looking very closely at the city's finances, just like every Washingtonian is looking at their own finances. So for people who have lost income, and a lot of people are suffering because of that, we are asking them to think that the city is in the exact same position of having lost income. People who are not paying sales taxes, staying in our hotels, going to our restaurants, paying income taxes. We're going to see a dramatic decrease in the income that the city is getting too. So we are certainly prioritizing relief. Actually today, our small business fund will go online. And so we're asking people to look and to see if and how they qualify for the small business fund, to continue to look at unemployment and if they qualify and how to sign up for unemployment. But we're all making sure that we're taking care of the priorities of the city and our people. Yes?
The emergency childcare facilities, are those just going to be for healthcare workers, or are they available to metro workers as well?
At this point, they are available for our healthcare staff, but as we see how it works and opens up in the demand, other essential staff may become eligible.
Do you have the numbers on the amount of students who don't have access to internet, or a rough estimate?
I think that the Chancellor can speak to a rough estimate.
Based on our current informal assessment of students before they left for spring break, and currently that about 30% of our students, we're estimating, do not have access to a device at home.
So how much money would need to be in the fund, the new equity fund, to help get all those students the supplies that they need?
So currently we have access to 18,000 devices, so we could potentially meet the demand for devices. The challenge that we are up against if students have devices at home is ensuring that every student has access to Wi-Fi. And with the Equity Fund, that is an opportunity for us to potentially purchase hotspots or other Wi-Fi solutions for students to have access to a device and internet access as well.
Do you have numbers on the Wi-Fi?
We estimate, again, it's about a 30% number.
Chancellor, previously we reported there were safety concerns about giving devices to students. Do you still have those concerns, and what's the city doing to address them?
So the current devices we have, thanks to, again, the leadership of Muriel Bowser, are secure devices that have all of our safeguards loaded already on those devices. And so we're able to distribute those devices, but again, we're working to ensure that there is access, and we've reached out in partnership with the Office of the Chief Technology Officer to ensure that we have touched every mobile vendor that provides hotspots and see what available devices would be able to be launched to schools.
What do you mean by safeguards? Is it like laptops that can't work if someone else uses them?
So, for example, we can monitor the sites that are being accessed. We can also shut down the devices we need to remotely. And so there are a number of other safeguards. We have software that are already loaded on those devices that align with our technology support and systems.
And then, are you concerned here that students aren't going to be ready for the next grade level starting in next year? And how will the beginning of the next academic year look like because of buildings being closed?
Yeah, so we've extended the time period for the third quarter for students who are currently working on assignments and submitting assignments. And we don't know beyond that in terms of what will happen for the fourth quarter or how we'll end the year, or what the summer or the school year for next year will look like. But what we can say is that we are extremely pleased and impressed with the outreach from families and students, ensuring that they have the information they need at home to continue learning. And we've been overwhelmed with the response, and we anticipate that will be the case in the coming weeks as well.
Yes.
Is there a timeline for closing the digital divide and rolling out these devices and hotspots to students?
I think that we would be overpromising if we said that we're going to close the digital divide in the middle of a global pandemic. What we're going to say is that we're going to do the very best that we can to connect as many students as we can. With the Chancellor's leadership, we have procured a number of devices already as part of a staged rollout that we plan to do. The Chancellor, as he just mentioned, is going to prioritize high school learning and collecting our high school students who do not have access to a computer. Access to the internet is something different. We have worked with the local Comcast, the local cable provider, to provide free internet connections for students and families who qualify, and you can reach out to them about that. I think it's a limited time. I also met with our DDOT just yesterday to examine ways that we can get more Wi-Fi spots out in Ward 7 and 8 in particular that would at least boost the Wi-Fi activity in the community. But the hot spots, I understand from my team, is a big missing component that will help connect to those devices. So we will continue to work on that as best we can to close this divide for students. However, I think you heard loud and clear from the Chancellor that learning is going to happen regardless of that. Just like learning has happened without computers, and they have worked very hard to devise curriculum and packets and supports for teachers and parents, because our expectation, as you heard from the Deputy Mayor, spring break is over, learning begins, and we're going to do everything that we can as a community to make sure kids can go back to school. And that is the part that we all play, is staying home except for essential trips so we can flatten the curve and get kids back to school.
Mayor Bowser, you've heard from council members and others that are continuing to push the point of we should have a shelter in place in the district. What's your response to the argument that a shelter in place is a good way to escalate and send a message to residents to take this even more seriously?
I think you've heard loud and clear from me, from Governor Hogan, from Governor Northam, that no essential commercial activity is going to happen in our region. We have shut down virtually economic activity in our region, and we are going to make sure that we are enforcing, to the extent that is possible, people not congregating in our public spaces, and that is how we'll flatten the curve.
And then in the past few days, we've seen on the coronavirus data that the number of tests coming out of the public health lab seems to be under 15 a day, and the capacity is closer to 150 samples a day. So why aren't we seeing more tests coming out of the public health lab?
The public health lab is doing all the tests that are being sent by providers. We had a conversation as well about how we send the message to non-hospital providers, especially who are doing tests, that the public health lab can turn those tests around. So we will continue to send that message. Tomorrow we expect to be able to talk to you a little bit more about testing activity across the district. But one way, one way that we know one group of people we know are the non-hospital providers that could send more tests to the district. Yes, Sam.
Yesterday, Deputy Mayor Donahue said that there were no positive cases at the DC jail, but I'm hearing from the jail union, that the correctional officers union, that the protocol is they're just putting people in that come in there, new people arrested. They're not really checking them. They're not isolating them. They're just putting them in the general population. And I think that's a level of concern.
Let me send this message to our union at the jail and all of our unions, that we're in an all hands on deck situation. We're calling on all of our team to work as hard as they can, work with their supervisors who have a reporting line to get any question answered that they have. But we have modified district operations where more than half of our people are working from home and doing a great job for us remotely. But we have first responders and frontline workers and unemployment staff and 911 call takers who are all going to their jobs as first responders to handle a crisis in our city and in our nation. So we're calling on everybody to work together cooperatively to get the information that they need from their respective supervisors and directors. So I got a question from you guys from the union at the jail yesterday. So I'll be talking to the union at the jail to make sure they have all of their questions answered.
We'll be talking to them about this because this is something that would concern you if people off the street, there's no, let's say,
what concerns me is that they have the medical advice that they need, not the off-the-street advice that they seem to be circulating.
Again, we're talking about...
I know what you're talking about.
All right. Well, I mean, it is a concern if you arrest anybody and you put them in the general population. Doesn't that concern you?
What concerns me is that we're serving our residents, whether they're in the jail or whether they're at home. Yes. Is that it? Yes.
Two separate topics. One on schools. Could somebody talk to the high school seniors, and what advice do you have for them? You know, many of them were, mine at home. He was only going to school 2 half days. He had very few credits to get to.
Sure.
So they weren't going to school. They were getting ready. They're already getting their, responses from colleges. But what do they do? What do these high school seniors do? Do they continue on with their application process for TAG and financial aid, or are they?
I think that's a great question, Mark. And I was at Trinity University last week, and I had a similar conversation with the president of the university, because I think a lot of families are starting to ask very practical questions like you're asking. And I wonder if the chancellor or the superintendent have any thoughts.
Yeah, we hear from many of our high school students and our seniors. What some of our high school students have done is they've stepped up, as I mentioned earlier, and offer ways that they can be supportive and provide tutorials to other students. And so that's one way that they can continue their graduation requirements. And also, we believe that that is an advantage that they will have going into their college or career experience. We also want students to take advantage of this time to prepare as much as possible for their next step after graduation. And so this is an opportunity for students to jumpstart their higher ed experience if they're going directly into college. This is also an opportunity for students to jumpstart their college and career planning as well. We have our counselors that are available to students to help think through what they can be doing at this time. And we know that many of the students have already started to do that. As students get more information about their college acceptance or any financial needs, again, our counselors will support students with their planning. And this is opportunity for students also to improve their grade point averages and ensure that they are in good standing for their senior year in preparation for college. It's also important to note that for those students that may not be seniors, but maybe juniors or sophomores, we're encouraging them to take advantage of this time to prepare for SAT or ACT or other assessments that they would need to take as they prepare for college admissions. Many colleges and universities also require students to take an assessment to determine if they need to take remedial courses in college. And so this is a time that, again, they can jumpstart their preparation. So there are lots to do. I think parents can find a lot of those resources online, but they can definitely find those resources on our website, and we'll continue to be providing more.
Dr. Faraby, to follow up on the student safety issue, can you comment on the physical safety of students and the concerns that kids might be getting robbed if they have devices with them?
Yeah, so we would expect that all of our students who are coming to get devices would treat this like any other device that they would have, and we would definitely ensure that parents and guardians are with us in protecting those devices. We will schedule times for grade levels to come to their high schools to pick up devices should they not have devices at home, and we'll be relying on our school staff and our parents and guardians to ensure that devices are protected as much as possible.
I just wanted to add to that answer because we do have public charter schools around the city that have already been distributing devices, and we've coordinated very closely with our public safety and justice personnel, including the police, but also roving leaders from DPR, some of our violence interrupters who we staff around school locations as we're distributing these devices. So as DCPS begins its own rollout, we'll also be coordinating closely with those folks.
Officers?
I think I addressed that with you yesterday, and I'm going to be speaking to the union today, and that's all I'll have to say about that. Yes.
Yesterday, President Trump said something that appeared to surprise some of the public health experts, that he might be considering reopening the economy sooner than maybe some think should happen. How would the city react to that if the federal government suddenly says you could go back to normal?
Everything that we've done is really absent any national direction. So I think that we will continue to follow what we see on the ground in DC. We will continue to work in coordination with Maryland and Virginia, because I think what we have seen through this pandemic, that our borders are very porous. People cross our borders. They work across the borders. And so I think what happens in this region is most important to the safety of DC residents. But clearly, it is alarming to hear the president say that without medical and health guidance, that he would put the economy or starting the economy ahead of saving lives. We are all worried about our economies. We're all worried about people getting back to work and being able to pay their bills and have their kids, have our kids go back to school. We are all worried about that. And so while we are confronting and trying to blunt the spread of this virus in our city, we're also looking ahead to how we're going to recover from this. And we think that the president has to do that too. But we think I think it would be, based on everything that I've read and been advised, premature to go back to normal before we have seen a blunting of the curve in the United States. Yeah, yes.
I've heard anecdotally from a couple of parking enforcement ticket writers who are telling me that they don't feel safe at work, that they are being told as recently as this morning they're in a room with 30 people for their roll call, and then on the days where both shifts are working, I guess you've reduced shifts in half, but on Wednesdays, both shifts still work, and they're put into vans with 10 other ticket writers and taken around and distributed around town. And they have just found out anecdotally, not through management, that 2 of their colleagues have tested positive. And so, what do you say?
I can't address any anecdotes about tests, and I would caution you not to do that either, Mark. But we will certainly address the concerns of workers. As I understand it, that's already happened with regard to vans that are being used. I understood that that was the case also about roll call, but we will double check to make sure that people aren't in rooms where they can't properly socially distance. Thank you, everybody.